Now, we start in the Middle East, where strikes between Israel and Iran are now on their fourth day. Israel says it has full aerial operational control over Tehran after Iran hit Israeli cities with a wave of missiles overnight. Our correspondent Anna Foster is in Jerusalem, covering all of the latest developments for us.
Let me bring you right up to date with the latest on the conflict between Israel and Iran and hostilities here in the Middle East, which continue to increase as 4 days now have passed since those attacks that Israel launched on Iran in the very early hours of Friday morning. Now, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, has warned that the residents of Tehran would, as he put it, pay the price for Iranian attacks on his country's citizens. But he has since qualified that statement that he put on social media. He said that there was no intention to physically harm the city's residents. Now, Israel says the number of people who've been killed by Iranian missiles has risen to 24 since Friday, with 8 of those deaths coming overnight from Sunday into Monday. There were missile attacks against Haifa and Tel Aviv. Now, Iran's health ministry says that more than 220 people have been killed in Israeli attacks since Friday. It's called on European nations to stop what it describes as an Israeli aggression. And the Israeli military says that it killed 4 senior Iranian intelligence officials with a targeted airstrike, and says it now has full aerial operational control over the Iranian capital, Tehran. So it is a fast-moving conflict, as you know, things developing and changing all of the time. We've also been seeing pictures from Tehran of people desperately trying to leave that city. Long queues of cars, traffic jams as people try to leave. Of course, as these Israeli attacks continue, people there trying to protect themselves and their families, and they feel that the best way to do it is to try and get out of the Iranian capital, Tehran, at the moment. Now, Israel has been also experiencing, seeing and hearing and feeling these barrages of Iranian missiles that have been coming towards Haifa, towards Tel Aviv as well. I just want to show you these pictures filmed by our BBC cameraman, Robbie Wright. This is what it looked like early this morning in Tel Aviv. You can see and hear there the sound and the sight of those Iranian missiles being intercepted in the sky high above Israel by its air defense systems. But some of those missiles do get through, and our Middle East correspondent Hugo Bashega is at one of those sites that was hit in one of those barrages of Iranian missiles. Hugo, what is happening where you are?
Yeah, and I'm here in the city of Petah Tikva. This is, one of the cities where there's, an Iranian missile hit a building. So let me just show you, because behind me we can see this 20-story building that was hit. You can see this huge hole in the building. This is the point of impact of this missile. And this attack happened at around 4 o'clock in the morning, and at least 4 people were killed here. And 2 of the victims had been inside bomb shelters at the time of the attack, and the missile struck a wall between the shelters, and the walls of the shelter didn't, collapsed as a result of this direct impact here. Now, there's a lot of work here. All morning residents have been coming to the buildings. This is a residential complex with 4 buildings. All of them have been damaged. They've been coming here, visiting their flats, if possible, collecting some objects. They don't know when they're going to be able to return to their homes, but there is a lot of, work to repair the damage already happening. And I think the feeling that I got from talking to people here, and also yesterday in a different city that had been attacked, is that people are in shock with the scenes that they're seeing here, and I think there's also the feeling that they felt they were protected by the country's air defense systems. Obviously, Israel has a very sophisticated layer of protection, and now they're saying that this system is not perfect. I mean, I think the strategy here, the Iranian strategy, is to fire dozens, if not hundreds, of missiles and drones at the same time, trying to overwhelm the country's air defense system. So it's almost inevitable that some missiles are going to penetrate this layer of defense. And the authorities have been telling the population here in Israel that this is a robust, strong system, but it is not perfect. So they've been telling the public to follow the instructions. There's a state of emergency here, to seek shelter when these attacks happen. And the indications from the Israeli authorities are that these attacks against Iran are going to continue. Perhaps this is a prolonged campaign, not days, but weeks. And they're saying that they expect attacks like this to continue.
Hugo Beshega in Petah Tikva, thank you for joining us. Well, BBC Verify has been looking at what satellite imagery can tell us about the damage that's been inflicted by Israel on Iran's military infrastructure and nuclear facilities. Let's hear more from BBC Verify's Merlin Thomas.
As Iran and Israel continue launching strikes, satellite imagery can give us an insight into what's happening on the ground. And it's particularly useful when looking at Iran, where it's incredibly difficult for BBC journalists to operate. Now, let's take a closer look. We've been examining satellite images of Israeli strikes on military infrastructure and nuclear facilities across Iran. These are some of the areas in Iran that we've been analysing. Now, this is an image from the 15th of June of a missile base in Bidkana, which has been hit. And you can see really clear damage from space in the roof of this building. And elsewhere, we can see several areas of damage at the international airport in Tabriz, which is near a reported military base. Now, we've compared images taken on the 13th and the 14th of June, and you can see this blackened area in the centre of the main runway here, and you can see signs of damage to a taxiway at one end, 2 points here where it meets the main runway. And have a look at this. This is Natanz. That's a nuclear site, where you can see damage here in an image on the 14th of June. Now, according to analysis from the Institute for Space and International Security, this electrical substation here was damaged alongside the pilot fuel enrichment plant as well. Now, at BBC Verify, we're still examining more satellite imagery from elsewhere in the country, and we're speaking to experts who can help us understand more about what type of damage we're seeing, and they can tell us what type of targets have been hit too.
Well, the head of the nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, has been talking about damage to Iran's nuclear sites. Now, he says there has been no further damage since Israel's attack was launched on Friday. Rafael Grossi has been addressing what has been called as an extraordinary session of the International Atomic Energy Agency's Board of Governors to discuss those strikes. He said there had been no more damage at the Natanz site in central Iran.
There has been no indication of a physical attack on the underground cascade hall containing part of the pilot fuel enrichment plant and the main fuel enrichment plant. However, the loss of power to the cascade hall may have damaged the centrifuges located there. The level of radioactivity outside the Natanz site has remained unchanged and at normal levels, indicating no external radiological impact to the population or the environment from this event.
Well, Mr. Grossi also said that there was no change to radioactivity levels at the Isfahan nuclear site, another key site in Iran. It was also damaged on Friday, but he did have this warning about the ongoing conflict.
Military escalation threatens lives, increases the chance of a radiological release with serious consequences for people and the environment, and delays indispensable work towards a diplomatic solution for the long-term assurance that Iran does not acquire nuclear weapons. Consistent with the objective of the IAEA and its statute, I call on all parties to exercise maximum restraint to avoid further escalation.
Well, that was what Rafael Grossi, the head of the IAEA, had to say at that extraordinary meeting. You can see the level of concern that's being caused by those attacks on Iran's nuclear infrastructure, generally on what it could mean for the civilian population there, and more widely afield as well. Well, let's speak to our correspondent, Jia Gol, from BBC Persian. They, of course, are constantly in touch with people inside Iran. Jia, what do you think that Israel is trying to achieve here? Because the official message is it's about trying to defend Israel, it's about trying to stop Iran from developing a nuclear bomb, but more and more people are talking about an ambition from Israel of regime change in Iran.
Exactly. And if you look what Prime Minister Netanyahu has said in the past few days, he is very clear. He wants regime change in Iran. He has called on Iranian people to rise up against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And if you look what they have done in the past few days, yesterday they wiped out the entire leadership of Iranian Revolutionary Guard's intelligence unit. When we talk about military intelligence, we normally deal with military issues. But Revolutionary Guard's intelligence unit, they have been very pivotal in suppressing dissidents inside Iran and outside the country. In fact, 2022, there was a mass uprising across the country. IRGC and also its intelligence unit were very crucial in suppressing that uprising. And also today, the IDF says they have targeted Iranian Revolutionary Guard's elite Quds unit center in Tehran. It's all seems to me Israel trying to weaken Iranian security forces, which many of them are being used also against dissidents inside Iran. It's all clear. Israel seems to have that policy by weakening Iranian security forces domestically, pave the way and create an environment for Iranian people who are not happy with the situation in Iran, with economic situation, with inflation, and many, frankly, call this war, it is the regime wars, not their wars. That's why I think trying to create that momentum for Iranian people to rise up. But the defense minister, Mr. Katz, very clearly yesterday said Tehran civilian could be a target. Certainly it's not in line with what Prime Minister has been saying in the past 2 days.
Jia, just briefly, we've seen people trying to leave Tehran, big traffic jams. What do people know? What kind of information are they getting there inside Iran about what is unfolding, what is happening?
Well, Israel has been warning people leave area which is close to military and secret facilities. But the problem is many Iranian people in Tehran, they have no clue where those facilities, where those bases, factories are based, because many of them are secret built places, nobody knows about it. That's why many are extremely worried. They are trying to leave, and even today police says all the entrance of the city is open for people to leave the city if they wish.
Jia Gol, our BBC Persian correspondent, thank you so much for joining us, for your insight as this conflict continues to escalate. There really is no sign that those continuing waves of retaliatory strikes that we're seeing between the two sides, another one here in Israel, barrage of Iranian missiles that arrived at about 4 o'clock this morning. And again, those pictures that we're seeing from Iran, with Israel saying that some of its most senior intelligence leaders have been killed in the last 24 hours. And the biggest oil refinery in the country has also been set alight by Iranian attacks. So it is very fast moving, it's a very complex story, even for the diplomats to follow. But that is the question, really, about how this might be resolved, what might be next for this conflict, and if anybody has the ability, I suppose, to control what Israel and Iran decide to do next. Well, joining me now is Vali Nasser, a professor of International Affairs and Middle East Studies at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Thank you for joining us here on BBC News. What is your assessment of what you're seeing so far, and whether there is anything that could be happening in the next sort of 24, 48 hours, short term, that could bring this to a halt? Because at the moment people are saying that this could last for weeks or even longer.
I do not see a stop to this conflict in the short term, because this is now a full-fledged war. Israel has started this war with the aim of destroying Iran's nuclear program, and it's not close to having achieved that. And it wanted also to downgrade and destabilize the Iranian state. It has assassinated a number of leaders. It has hit a lot of targets, but it hasn't achieved that either. And if in the face of Iranian missiles, Israel was to stop now, it would look like it has failed in its mission. Similarly, Iran does not want to be seen that it has caved to Israeli military attack, and it wants to push Israel to recalibrate and recalculate the cost that it's incurring by waging this war. I think the two sides are going to bloody one another for a while longer before there might be an opening for any kind of a ceasefire conversation.
Who has influence on what is happening right now? So, for example, in the last 24 hours or so, we heard that Israel had plans to assassinate the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei. But the US President Donald Trump put paid to that and said that he would not support it, and that's why it didn't happen. Equally, a suggestion that Russia's Vladimir Putin might start to become some sort of peacemaker, which would be a departure for him to get involved and arrange some sort of ceasefire. Who is really in control here of what's going on?
I mean, the only country that literally can actually bring about some form of ceasefire or mediate is the United States, because the United States alone has influence with Israel, the kind of influence that can change Israel's position. And also the United States has the kind of leverage with Iran in form of nuclear negotiations, sanctions relief that would be of interest to the Iranians. President Trump could use President Putin as a go-between, but President Putin cannot do that on his own. And I think President Trump saying that he vetoed the killing of Iran's supreme leader may or may not be true. But the reason that he's saying it is to provide political space for the Iranian leadership to accept a U.S. mediating role. So he's trying to play good cop in order to be able to have some kind of an influence on the outcome.
Bali Nasser, thank you for joining us, for sharing your analysis with us. Really appreciate it. And that is really key right now, is who actually has the power to try and affect what's happening here in the Middle East. And certainly all eyes are on the US, particularly as the US President Donald Trump over the weekend has really oscillated between several different positions, at times seeming to support what was happening. And that was after the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio put out a statement very early on distancing the US from what was happening. There were real concerns for both US, UK, French and other assets here in the region. So I think, Lucy, one thing that we're going to be talking about a lot more in these next few days, and which I know you're about to talk more about now, is diplomacy. When world leaders are getting together, the conversations that they are having, they will really be trying to work out how they can perhaps navigate a path through this between two sides, neither of whom at the moment wants to back down.
Anna Foster there with the very latest for us from Jerusalem. We do have lots of live pictures coming to us from Israel. You can see here the site of one of the Iranian strikes in Bnei Brak. A crowd of people there just gathered around. We also have the skyline for you of Tel Aviv as well. Israel now saying at least 8 people have been killed in a third night of bombardment of Israeli cities. That brings the total to 24. Nearly 300 people are being treated in hospital. The Israeli military now says it's destroyed 1/3 of Iran's surface-to-surface launches. Tehran